Right. So now let's execute all the test cases present in these four class files. Okay. So this app test is something which got generated by default with Maven skeleton. So you can delete this because we are no more required because we have created few tests, Appium, REST API and Selenium. Okay. So first let's go back to command prompt and we will understand three main commands here of the Maven which are most important. First is clean. So when you give mvn space clean, so whatever Maven command, it always starts with mvn. So when you give this command, it will delete all temporary files or builds whatever current project have. So it basically cleans the project and delete all the previous references and the builds. So basically this is preferred before you execute tests, but it's up to you. But in general, if you see any build errors and when you fix that, it's better to clean the project and then start executing your stuff. Okay. So whatever Maven commands you want to execute that from the project level. So right now my project is in Rahul Maven Java folder. So you have to execute all your tests from this folder only. So basically it should identify pom.xml. That is the key point here. So the commands from where you are running should point to your pom.xml. So right now pom.xml is in project level, right? So we are executing all the commands from project level only, because when you execute this commands, when you hit all these commands talk to this pom.xml and triggers Maven executions. Okay. So when I say mvn clean and hit enter, so it basically scans and cleans the project if it have any. So as we have not run the any time till now, so that's why build is quickly completed. If you have 6 to 7 executions, then it goes and cleans off the previous build information. Okay. So mvn clean is the first command which will clean your project, and that is what I have mentioned here. And next most important command is compile. Okay. So one excellent feature you have with Maven is checking the syntax errors of your code. Now let's say there are hundreds of test cases in your folder and you want to check if all the test cases are syntactically correct. Like if you miss anything semicolon here and run your test, it will fail and it says compile error at line number 10 in REST API test. Okay. So you might think Eclipse also tells this information, but in real time when we run all these test cases in Jenkins, there will be no Eclipse to show all these errors, right? So if someone check-ins the code and when we run all this from Jenkins, this Maven compile will give you the exact results of your compilation. So basically this command will not run your tests, but it will compile your code and tells you if there are any syntax errors. Okay, so right now in all our tests there is no syntax errors. So when I say mvn compile and hit enter, it will scan and check the syntax validations of all your tests. And now, so if you see here build success, so that means there is no syntax error in your test. So next Maven command is test. So now you know what does clean do and what does compile do. So that's the reason generally whenever people runs a project, they'll do clean first and then compile and then test, so that it cleans all the builds, compile the execution, and this test command will actually trigger your test execution. Okay, so this command will do all the operations. And you know what, if you give mvn test directly without giving all these clean and compile, by default as a prerequisite this command will do clean and compile and then starts test. Okay, so you can give simply mvn space test also. So if you don't compile before this operation, Maven does automatically for you as part of test command. Okay, so generally when I'm running my tests in Jenkins, I'll simply pass mvn space test, so it compiles as well. Or if you want to put it deliberately, better to place both the commands. It's up to you. But if you don't compile and give this test, that doesn't mean that scripts will run automatically without checking syntax error. It still checks as a prerequisite for the test command. Okay, and at the same time, and when you are hitting this test command, it will firstly read all your dependencies. Okay, and it will first go to its .m2 folder, which is your local repository, and checks if these jars are present and brought by Maven earlier. Okay, whenever it sees dependencies, it will not directly jump to Maven repository every time. First, it checks if it is present in its local folder. It goes to .m2, which automatically creates once you set up your Maven in your machine. And then it goes to repository folder, and here it searches. So all these are jars. Okay, so JUnit jars, and down for J you can see org, and here you will find Selenium jars, testng jars, everything. So because I ran this project earlier, so all the jars are already in my machine. So for you, for the first time, when you run mvn space test, Maven will find all these dependencies. First, it checks in your local Maven repository whether it brought all these jars in earlier projects or not. If that is not present here, then only it will connect to Maven repository website and bring down all your jars. Okay, this way it saves you a lot of the time, because now you run a project, it connects to Maven and brings the jars. Okay, now you have all these jars, and when you run the project again, it will, if it connects again and bring you jars, there is duplicate, right? So if I run this project 100 times, that doesn't mean that Maven connects to Maven repository 100 times and make 100 copies in your machine. First it checks in local. If it is not present, then only it goes to that particular Maven repository and bring you. Okay, so I ran this project earlier when I am working, so I all have these jars in my machine. So when you run this for the first time, it will pull from your repository. Okay, so let me give mvn test command now and see how execution happens. Mvn space test, and that will actually connect and get all your jars. Okay, so my test will take little time because jars are already there. Okay, for you it might take little more time to get all the jars from a repository, which might take 1 or 2 minutes for the first time. So thereafter, as the jars are already there, it will quickly find and starts your execution. And now you see there are total test runs 6, and there are no failures and no errors. So that means Maven successfully ran all these 3 test cases. Okay, these 3 Java files, and each Java file there are 2 test cases, and we are right now simply printing this. We are not injecting any tool code here. Okay, so that is the reason it says that 6 pass, and as we are just printing that, you see this, these are printed in your output. And tomorrow when you write your actually code for native app or for Selenium or for API, then instead of just printing, it actually does the execution of your code. Okay, that's so simple. And now you see that write 100 test cases here. Never mind right clicking every time, run as testng test. Okay, just remember this command. Even you can close Eclipse. Okay, you need not depend on Eclipse now to execute all these tests. Just open your laptop, go to the command prompt and navigate to the path where exactly pom.xml is lying, which is nothing but project level, and then just hit this command mvn test and hit enter. That's all. It runs all your test cases and it gives a report like how many ran and how many failures and skipped. So that's the beauty with Maven. And one important thing you need to remember here is, if Maven want to recognize all your test cases inside this test folder, if it want to recognize, then you should always put test word at the end of the each Java class file name. Okay, so Maven uses an algorithm which expects test keyword at the end of the each Java class file. It filters based upon that logic and it executes all your Java files. And tomorrow, if you go and change Selenium test to only Selenium by skipping this test word in your folder and then run your test, Maven will not pick this file because there is no test word in the file name. So as per Maven algorithm, to pick and execute, it will always look for test file name at the end of your file. See, that's why you see clearly observe APM test, REST API test, and Selenium test. That's why I concatenated test keyword for all these three. Okay, so let's comment out this Selenium test. Okay, I commented out now. So that means there are only 5 tests now. You see that 2 in APM, 2 in REST API, only 1 in Selenium because I commented out this step. So if I run this test again, it should give me the result. Oh, did I save it? Oops, sorry. Yeah. Now run your test and the results will be updated accordingly and you can see the test will be 5. You see that? Okay. So obviously your command will also be prompted to your updated code and just change the test to another name and run. It will not pick this file at all. It will pick only first 2 files. So that's why I'm getting questions from students saying Maven not picking this my files in execution. So if that is the case, just cross check whatever you have given. So once you run the test and if you want to check where exactly jars are present, as I said, you can come to this folder, see users Rahul and M2. You find a repository here, you see that, and here is where you can find all your jars. So that's why we have given in Eclipse that our Maven will point out all jars to that specific location. What happened? 1 second, it should be here, window preferences. Yeah, okay. So that's how you can execute your test with Maven. So in the next lecture, let's see how can we integrate TestNG features into Maven. So in the last section, we have learned, right, importance of TestNG XML file. So just like how we can trigger all tests with single command, and we saw that how to execute all these tests from TestNG XML file. So if you have that XML file kind of thing, how can you trigger that XML file with Maven? That we'll be seeing in our next lecture. Thank you.